So we're studying and practicing with the Bodhisattvas. Today is Jizo. We have Susan here too. I mean, we have all of us, but we also have Susan, Miss Jizo here. A lot of us got to make Jizos with Susan. And I brought some Jizos on the altar, which I'll show you in a minute. And one of them is Susan's. Thursday, I won't be here. I'll be, sadly, no, not sadly at all. I'm going to be up doing canoe camping with my son and his partner and husband up in the mountains. And Erica is going to, here's Erica. She'll be here in the room with us on Zoom, and she'll be with you on Zoom, and she's going to present isn't the right word. She's going to initiate us into the, I must be hot in the brain, she's going to initiate us into the cult of Avalokiteshvara, which is not a bad way to go. Then next week, we'll do Maitreya and Tara, and then the week after that, we're going to begin a series of, we're going to do both way-seeking mind talks, Sangha way-seeking mind talks, and engage Buddhist practice talks. Sangha members giving talks on what their bodhisattva practice looks like in the world. So we'll get to hear from Sangha members, and then we go into practice period. And I think tomorrow we'll be sending out all the information and applications. And I hope that everyone enthusiastically thinks that practice period is the best possible way and thing that you could think to do in the fall, because you'll be, the world is wonderful and it's a mess, and we'll all be helping each other wake up and waking up with and for all beings. So that will, I hope, come tomorrow. Jizo. Let me introduce you to Jizo. Well, you probably already know Jizo, a lot of you, if you've hung around me or to bring Jizo over. Jizo's over. We've been using Hagen Dan Layton's book as our source book. I've been completely enjoying getting to know the Bodhisattvas once again, like friends. Like, oh, I'm visiting old friends, and I didn't remember that or know that about you. And I had the same feeling today with Jizo, and I've taught Jizo a lot and done practice groups and workshops and ceremonies, and because I sort of, just a personal confession is, as I've done each bodhisattva, it's like each one of them becomes like my favorite bodhisattva. And so then I thought, why have I spent so much time in my lifetime on Jizo Bodhisattva? Because I could have done any of the bodhisattvas. So and part of it was karmic with Yvonne Rand, but I read today and I thought, I like Jizo Bodhisattva. Jizo Bodhisattvas of the earth. Jizo Bodhisattva is a humble monk. Jizo Bodhisattva isn't a shining practice, which is beautiful. I love Samantabhadra, but Jizo is right here in the earth. Sandals, footsteps, we'll talk more about it, and basically just wants to help and will go any place to help. So I think as a guide, and Jizo Bodhisattva also grief, fearlessness, and but I'm getting ahead of myself. So who shall I introduce first? We'll start with Susan made this. I love this Jizo. Susan's made amazing Jizos. I love it when people can take traditional beings and play in them and let them come forward. And this one, you might notice, has peas on its head. Now, talk about being born in the right time that we could have this is Jizo playfully having pea hat. If you are in the marketplace, the Jizo that is most commonly known or available is this little stone Jizo. I have a big one at home too. I didn't bring the big ones. I at first thought, oh, that's just a little Japanese thing that they did, that they wanted to make Jizo look friendly and big-eyed. But you know what, Jizo originally was really serious, and it's a very serious role. But this is actually one of the beautiful things, and to me, one of the most profound teachings about Jizo is fearless. Jizo goes into hell realms. Jizo is not afraid of messes or messy people, but has this incredible sense of optimism and childlike innocence. So it doesn't like bum Jizo out, this suffering, miserable world. Jizo just, it's like, wow, I get to help. How can I help? And this one is my newest Jizo that it's wonderful to make a Jizo, but you can also get them from Great Vow Monastery, Chosen Days, who also has a book on Jizo. And this is the newest one. Oh, I hadn't looked at the back of it. I've read and known Jizo, like most of these art archetypes, is presented as a male monk. But the story that I've read is that women, monastics, revere Jizo, and that in some monasteries, if you every year they change Jizo's robes, and that underneath there's a woman's body. And this Jizo, I'm shocked to say, I don't know if you can see, has breasts. It's a woman. So someone has finally carved and brought us a female Jizo. And Jizo, none of these that I have, often Jizo is carrying a child, because Jizo has a particular role for children who have died. Let me also, if you've been in the Green Gulch Zendo, and many of you have, it's on there's some on the chairs here, and this is the beautiful Jizo, tall, big, 6 feet, 8 feet big in the Green Gulch Zendo. That's very classic and dignified and refined, and it's a really good one to use when you look at the iconography. Okay, so having done that, Jizo, I don't know if we ever did this. When some of you know, some of you maybe here don't know, is that Susan used to invite us to her studio, and she would help us all make and bring forward our own Jizos. And some of them were little and some of them were big, and she'd bake them, and then we'd come and we'd glaze them, and it was wonderful. I had little Jizos all over my house, and I think some of you do too. But I don't know how much we actually during that time did any of this study of Jizo. Maybe this is one of the first times, I don't know. So Jizo, oh, I was going to start with, this is from Taigen. His first paragraph about Jizo. Kitsanagarbha Jizo. Monk as Earth Mother. Okay, how could I not love Jizo? How could you not love Jizo? The historical origins and impact of Kitsanagarbha. Kitsanagarbha is of lesser importance in terms of philosophical doctrine than the other bodhisattva archetypes. He, now we know she, appears in Tibet and in India simply as one of the many bodhisattvas in the intricate Vajrayana mandalas that depict aspects of awakened mind. But as the Mahayana spread through Central Asia and into China and Japan, Kitsanagarbha came to rival even Avalokiteshvara in popularity, thanks largely to their fertile relationship to the earth and their shamanic protection of the deceased and of the hell dwellers. So Jizo has a little bit of the shamanic in there too, which is, maybe we'll do this at another point, but some of you may know that Zenju Earthling Manual, her most recent book, is about the shamanic aspects of Zen, which has kind of, maybe we've forgotten. And it's wonderful that she's bringing them forward again, and Jizo also embodies that. So Jizo originated in India as the Bodhisattva Kitsanagarbha, or earth womb Bodhisattva. And some scholars think that Jizo is originally from Pravithi, the Vedic goddess of the earth. So in the story of Buddha's enlightening and enlightenment experiences, when he sat down under the Bodhi tree and he said, I'm going to sit here with and wake up with and for all beings, and he did the earth touching gesture, and there's you might even find it at the Asian Museum of Art here. You can certainly probably Google it. Is in some of the even old depictions, there's a hand that comes up to meet his mudra, and it's Pravithi, the earth goddess, who's bearing witness to his vow and saying, I'm here to support you. So it's Kitsanagarbha in Sanskrit, Daizhong in China. In Japan, it's Jizo. In English, it's earth storehouse or earth womb or womb of the earth. I was sitting here and it was really hot, although there is the air conditioning here. And I looked down at my paper and it said earth womb, and I suddenly felt cool. Like going, I've been thinking about the little animals. What do the little animals do? And the big animals, well, and the human beings, is what do we do in this heat? And I think the lucky ones probably have a way to go down under the earth. That's how they stay cool. So here's, maybe I'm saying this from what Taiwan Dan said, I'm not sure. The literal translation of the Bodhisattva Sanskrit name is earth store. The name in one sense indicates that any undesirable or troublesome thoughts stored or hidden deep in one's heart or mind. Probably don't have any of those. That's a joke. May be uncovered and released with the help of Kitsanagarbha's divine power, thereby freeing the person from their negative influence. So it's one of the things that I love about bringing a Jizo grief ceremony to when I sit in a room with a mother and a father and parents who have lost a newborn infant, which I mean, that's just what comes to my mind. Losing any child, it's a home run. It's just, and to be able to say, Jizo will go with you anywhere in your heart or in your mind, will not turn away. It just seems to me an amazing thing to be, even you don't have to believe it, but just the fact that there's this archetype, ancient archetype of a being that will just go with you and not turn away. A less literal translation, earth treasure, expresses the many marvelous aspects of the earth and are mysterious in Jizo's mysterious connection with it. This is a quote from somewhere. The earth is vast. It supports all living beings. It is impartial. It receives the life-giving rain, please, when it comes. It produces trees and crops. It holds all planted seeds, which will ultimately ripen and come to fruition. It holds many treasures. It produces medicines too, because Jizo is also known as a healer and a medicinal healer for suffering humanity. It is not moved by storms, and the earth too, in its own way, is a sentient being. The earth treasure Bodhisattva has a deep relationship with beings of the earth. And we've studied the 6 realms with the humans, and the hungry ghosts and the animals and the God realms. Well, I don't know how much. Well, Jizo, if there's suffering in the God realms, Jizo will go. The beautiful thing about Jizo is Jizo has a division. It's called a division body. Other bodhisattvas can do this too. Is it said that Jizo has 100,000 million division bodies and will become exactly what you need. So if there's suffering in the God realm, you might show up as another God, because maybe that's exactly what somebody needs to meet you exactly where you are. So there's no discrimination about good or bad. Kitsanagarbha has been known as the teacher of the dark regions. Jizo says, if I do not go to hell to help them, who else will go? If I do not go, who else will go? There's also another one here. Jizo is said to be the patron of lost causes because Jizo never gives up. Jizo's pretty cool, huh? I think I made a good choice, or Jizo chose me, or who knows, any of that. So no matter what the crime or the karma, Jizo is willing to have a connection with any being and to help free them from suffering. So the archetypal qualities of Jizo: equanimity, stability. Why we sit. Stabilize yourself. Find the ground. A gentle benevolence, a great kindness and compassion. Completely engaged in life. Jizo has no desire to get out of here and go anyplace else. Jizo is plunging into life, whatever's needed, and taking full responsibility, not saying, well, would you please go take care of that? I'm busy over here. Jizo just says, yes, I will. Has an unquenchable optimism, a childlike innocence. And the thing that I love about Jizo, because who knows why, but I do, is that Jizo is fearless. So we're always, I'm afraid. Are you afraid? Do you know fear? Do you know fear? To say that you don't know fear as a human being, it seems to me, probably we're not looking deeply enough, but right in the midst of it, Jizo just says, here I am. So it's working with fear and being with fear, understanding fear with compassion. The oldest statue of Jizo is from 557 CE. So Jizo, so it's like this universal need. I feel that way with these archetypes when they come up. This is what human beings, we need Jizos. They were phallic stones at crossroads that were then replaced with Jizos. Jizo hangs out in the liminal and the transitional spaces, so the in-betweens. Jizo is most known for their great vow. Vowing keeps coming up over and over again. Jizo's great vow was made long ago when witnessing the suffering of many beings in hell. And there's a sutra, there's a Kitsanagarbha sutra, which we'll get to in a minute, but a lot of it just describes different hell realms. Jizo going into different hell realms. It's not easy reading, but if you like hell realms, you might find it interesting. That Jizo would help every being in the 6 realms to cross over and to be free from suffering. So Jizo is especially known to help women and children. Jizo, I found out when I was working with veterans, I was surprised. We took them down to Tassajara, and there's a Jizo at Tassajara. And without knowing anything, the vets were like immediately attracted to Jizo. And it turns out that Jizo is a bodhisattva for warriors. Interesting, they knew, huh? I mean, who would know these tough combat vets would think Jizo was cool? Jizo is also, because it also has happened with the firefighters, because I work with the wildland firefighters, and one of the people that I work with practices with Janchos and bays. And I never would have done this. She made all the firefighters in the little, the last retreat that we did. She took little rocks and she drew little Jizos on each one of them and gave them to these firefighters that jump out of airplanes. And I mean, they're out there now. And I thought, well, that's bold. I wonder what they'll think of this. And you know what? They loved it. They all put them in their pocket and took them home. So keep pushing up against your assumptions about what people want and need. Okay. So the iconography. Here's the iconography. We'll use her. So Jizo is, well, traditionally in the very beginning, Jizo had the mudra of fearlessness, which is this. Always have to look to see if it's right or right. It's palm face. So this is the Jizo of fearlessness, and then it got changed into Jizo has in her left hand a staff and holds a Sintamani jewel. Jizo is on pilgrimage. Jizo is a pilgrimage, and the story is has been on pilgrimage for 2,000 years. A person who travels a long distance to a sacred place as an act of devotion, which we all are on pilgrimage, whether we know it or not. Bare feet. This one, just checked it out. Hadn't checked it out. Bare feet. Connected to the earth, usually shown walking, although this one isn't, and poised with one foot as if ready to walk. Staff. So the staff is, we did a Jizo workshop at Tassajara once, Sarah Emerson and I, and we had everybody make staffs. I love staffs, and we walked around the valley in the hills with Jizo's staff. So the staff it has 6 metal rings at the top. The idea is that it's the 6 realms. It's also the 6 paramitas, and it also jangles when Jizo walks and announces their presence and wards off predators, and also scatters all the little insects so that Jizo doesn't step on anybody. It also says, I had forgotten this, it's sometimes the staff is equated with the spine, and it also is here walking with a staff is to keep your thoughts from wandering. And it also opens the gates of hell. It's like, ball. And I have to say, you might try walking with a staff too, because it does quiet your mind, and it may open up some of the gates of your own personal hell realms. Just get real grounded and steady. Hold on to your staff. You never know what might happen. The Sintamani jewel is in the left hand. It's the Sintamani jewel. It's the jewel. It's called the wish-fulfilling jewel, which dispels all fears. We all need one, and is the guiding light through all the realms that Jizo travels. So it's you could say it's our inner light. You could say it's the light of the world. You could say it's the Dharma truth, but right here, it's a luminous jewel. Here it says, warm and brilliant light radiates from it, illumining the deepest reaches of hell. The light brings hope and comfort to those who would strike out and harm each other. That's nice. We all need to hold a little light close and remind ourselves in those moments. Joy descends into realms of confusion and darkness, and the light attracts people to Jizo to hear and to see the Dharma. We do that when someone feels like they have a light presence. People come towards us, maybe. I thought I didn't bring the Jizo Sutra. It's fun, if you live here in Sonoma County or the Bay Area and you gone up to the Temple of 1,000 Buddhas and they do all their own printing up there, you should go up sometime and go into their temple and look at their statues. But they part of the lineage that they're in is they must study and revere the Kitsanagarbha Sutra, because you can get them there. They have many different versions of them. But I didn't bring that, but I did bring Hagen Dan Layton's a couple of stories. Thank you. Okay. Hagen thinks that the Sutra of the Past Vows of Kitsanagarbha Bodhisattva gives a fascinating twist to the Greek myth of Demeter, the maternal goddess of grain, and her daughter Persephone, queen of the underworld. Remember that myth? So here he tells two different stories, he recounts two different stories. In both of the stories, Jizo is the daughter of a woman destined for hell after death. We have to remember that a lot of these cultures are filial piety. That's part of what this comes out of. In the first story, the daughter is a Brahmin woman whose recently deceased mother had been full of skeptical doubt, had ridiculed spiritual practice, and had recklessly ignored the consequences of her own conduct. Hopefully none of us have had mothers. The Brahmin woman is filled with grief and concern for her mother's spirit and meditates deeply with arduous bone-breaking intensity, concentrating on an image of the Buddha of her era. She finally hears the voice of that Buddha who transports her down to the hell realms, where she witnesses various local tortures. But she learns from one of the hell guardians that her efforts have saved her mother, who has already departed from hell to heavenly realms, where the mother's spirit will prepare for spiritual practice. It's because the daughter cared. And I feel like one of the reasons I practice, I mean, many reasons, but I also grew up knowing the suffering of my mother and my father. And of course, when you're a child, you want to help in some way, and there's generally nothing that you can do to help. But the really good news in Buddhist sense of time and space is there is no time and space. So practicing here in the present and can actually, as I wake up, it helps my mother wake up. And as I sit with the pain that she wasn't able to sit with, it helps my mother. So I feel like part of my journey has been through therapy and through practicing, and is to go into some of the hell realms that my parents carried in the generation before that and the generation before that they just, because of causes and conditions, couldn't do. So these aren't so far away, these stories. In the second story, the daughter named Bright Eyes is also concerned about her deceased mother, who relished eating animal flesh and also regularly spoke ill of others. Maybe we'll be lucky, we'll have some daughter who will be practicing for us when we like slip off the path. Bright Eyes is advised by an awakened Arhat disciple to make offerings to the current Buddha, which she does. She is granted a vision of the mother's experiences in hell. Ooh, can you imagine seeing your mother in hell? In some ways, I feel like I did see my mother in the hell. It's part of. Thanks to Bright Eyes' intervention, her mother's spirit is reborn to a lowly housemaid as a son destined to die as a child rather than being reborn in hell. After Bright Eyes further entreats and solemn vows to deliver all beings from hell, from then onward, the mother is assured of new rebirths that will lead to her own spiritual awakening. These past life stories of Jizo as a daughter, grieving for and rescuing her mother from hell, intriguingly reverse the stories of Demeter Greek goddess of grain associated with the earth and agriculture. Because remember, Persephone is kidnapped and Demeter goes down to save her. So whereas Demeter is an earth mother figure rescuing her daughter from hell, Jizo has been a kind of earth daughter going down to rescue her mother. I just had the thought, well, maybe in this time, our earth mother, who is here in Sonoma County in California, it's really, really hot, clearly. Climate crisis, maybe as her daughters. That is our job. It's reverse. We'll be like Jizo and fearlessly find ways to save her and all beings, since they're not separate. Susan, are you there? There she is. Would you like to take a moment and tell us why you have been devoted to Jizo all these years? You have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute.
It started at Russian River Zendo at the time that Jan Chosen-Bays wanted to bring 250,000 Jizos to Japan for reconciliation. And at that time they weren't clay, they were sewn like prayer flags. And then because I was already working in clay, I got interested in making Jizos and having people come to the studio and make them. And I miss that. I love doing that. So many of them got out into the world. And so they bring Jizo values to our practice everywhere. Helping the people across. So I think Jizo lives in all of us.
I wanted to elaborate on what Susan said, just a part that I hadn't said, which I really appreciate everything you said, Susan, is when you do Jizo ceremonies, because Jizos are often at the crossroads and at cemeteries in Japan, is Jizo is an intermediary. And so if you make a gift or an offering or a prayer to Jizo, and that's part of what we do with the Jizo ceremony, is the belief is that Jizo can and will go anywhere, so that the message can go to your loved one, so that you're not, there's no sense that there's something inaccessible over there that ended, but Jizo knows how to, and when we call on Jizo, knows how to help us bridge. Anybody else want to, maybe I'm thinking the best way to do, I had an idea, but now I think I'm changing it, which isn't a surprise. Other people have made Jizos or had relationships with Jizo. Anyone want to tell a short Jizo story or experience? Chelsea, I was hoping.
Yeah, I just feel so tender, and it's precious to hear from Susan. And Chris, thank you so much for bringing this one forward. It's so alive for me today. And there's so much I actually want to say about that, but I won't. Just to say, I keep Susan's Jizo, one that she gave me, in my kitchen window, and it's my practice every single night to go out, and first I look at the stars, and then I come in and I bow to Jizo and this protector of women. and children. And many of you have heard me say before, I did lose a child in his infancy, and Jizo is there to support me in my parenting of him from a different realm, even now, to still be his mom. Yeah, and with all of the families that I work with, I had just some new folks I met today that I'm supporting in their parenting, and to be able to again and again enter into that place of the deepest pain, and to feel that there's some way that we're doing it together. It just feels, makes it all possible, right? That we have friends like Susan, that we have these teachings, and that I can bow to that little Jizo every night and know it's not just me going to the hell realm with a family. It's that we're all entering it together. I feel propped up by it each day.
And I don't know if Sherry's there, but Sherry,
She's here.
she has made Jizos with me and that has had an ongoing Jizo practice.
Want to say something?
I so am grateful to Susan for opening my world to Jizo, and the joy that she has brought to so many people. And most of the women in my family have cancer, and there's been something about whether it was a Jizo that I made myself or a Jizo that Susan had made. There was something about giving that to them that to me it felt so potent, so real. There's some strength. So I have a lot of gratefulness to Susan for lots of reasons, and thank you.
One of the things that Ellis, in just a minute, yeah, great. And one of the things we've done in the practice groups and yeah, is well, Susan taught me first. You can make little origami Jizos, and you can take them out and go on walks and just like tuck them in trees and bushes with little prayers for the world. And little prayer flags with Jizo prayers on it, and hang it on trees and around. And the other thing is you can make little rocks with little ties on them or prayers in them, red yarn on them, and carry them in your pocket. It's enormously helpful. I think to me, it's one of the, it helps me with fearlessness. It's like if I've got something to hang on to. It's like, I don't know how to do it, and I don't know where I'm going, but somehow it helps. These little things really do help. Mystery to it. Ellis, unmute yourself.
Hi. When Chris was like, who has a Jizo story? I was like, not me, definitely not. But I mean, yeah, it sounds so, I feel like right now in this moment, I want nothing more than to have a Jizo practice. It really sounds, oh, so rich. Yeah, I feel like since becoming a parent, like I'm just so much more this very vulnerable, tender to certain types of pain. And it just makes me feel like there's a certain like loneliness to it, you know. So to have you know, this symbol of I don't know, all people who have gone there to that really vulnerable place of pain is so special. And then, you know, as soon as I was like, I don't think I have a Jizo story, I had this memory of something that just happened a couple of weeks ago where I came out, I have a Jizo that I made with Susan, maybe in one of the last classes that Susan did at her studio. It wasn't that long ago. And I have him in my garden, and I came outside and Misha was washing him. I didn't really think she ever took much notice of him. He sits like under this lemon tree that we all planted together, but I didn't, I don't know what she knows about anything. And she had this little spray bottle and she was washing him with it. And I think I may have even gotten a picture. It was just such a moment. And I can't believe I forgot it because it was so recent. But, honestly, Misha, as a child, brings so many of those stunning, like, what are you doing? It's so profound moments every day. So in that way, I'm not surprised that I forgot it. And then I just have this like patchwork of like weird Jizo memories since I don't have a Jizo practice. But one other just such strong association that I have with Jizo is the image of a Jizo that Barry Mason made. And can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Anyway, and I think maybe Susan had one of Barry's Jizos at her studio when we made Jizos, but I looked at Barry's Jizo, I don't know, and it's the exact image of it is still in my mind, and it like comes up at random times because it was so beautiful to me and weird, like in a weird way. I think Barry's style was a little weird. Anyway, so those are some of my Jizo memories, and I'm going to look one day through my phone and see if I can find a picture of Misha washing our Jizo, which is not complete. I never painted or glazed it for some reason. It's just white. And it just occurred to me, like, I know how to paint that Jizo. Misha is going to paint that Jizo, obviously. Okay, thanks.
That was, and Barry's a Sangha member who died a couple of years ago, and Barry was completely and uniquely Barry, so I'm not a bit surprised that Barry did a completely uniquely Barry Jizo. Okay, so here's what let's we're in a minute going to do a service. We're going to do a well-being service, and somebody just hold up. I just lost gallery view, but I stopped for a minute. Somebody was holding up some picture of Jizo. Is that Marilyn? Yeah. Why don't you hold it up and we can spotlight you?
There you go. That's a traditional image of the Ojizo-sama in Japan with the red bib. And it's a way that mothers who have lost children, they call it preborn or unborn, go through their grief. That's how they process their grief, by making these little red bibs. And it's very sweet and tender. And I'm enjoying that studying Ojizo-sama. Thank you.
Appreciating how much with the other bodhisattvas, maybe I didn't have to do it, but I felt like I was introducing them and opening them, and with Jizo, I feel like the Sangha is well acquainted enough with Jizo that you all just know Jizo in your bodies and hearts, which is pretty wonderful. And if you didn't, you've just been initiated. So Gretchen is going to put on screen the Jizo mantra, which I think is particularly beautiful. Anybody here knows how, and in here I printed some up. We're a small little group here, but we'll do our best because small doesn't matter. Jizo is small, but I'll do it the first time. If you know how to harmonize. It's really beautiful when you harmonize. I'll do it the first time, the couplet, and then why don't you all each in your own home, and here we'll do it. And I'm going to suggest we do it 9 times just to sort of get into the the shamanic chant of it, and then I'll stand up and I'll do some bows, and we'll do the Metta Sutta, which hopefully you have your chant book at home. If not, you can hum along, and we'll do a dedication for people who have died and well-being. Yeah, great. And so imagine that when we're doing all of this, that there are little Jizos across time and space that are responding. And I'll share that when I do this mantra, if I'm like in the car or I'm upset or something has happened and I chant this mantra, it's a very powerful mantra. And I completely come down to earth. Not all the time, but it does help a lot. Okay, so here's the first time, and then you all come. Om ka ka kabi san mai so ka. Om ka ka kabi san mai so ka. Om ga ga kapi 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 san mai so ka. Om ga
Copy some.
so ka. Om ga ga kapi san
Hey,
so ka. Om ga ga kapi san mai so ka. Om ga ga kapi san mai so ka. Om ga ga kapi san mai so ka. Om ga ga kapi Om ga ga kapi san mai so ka. Om ga ga kapi san mai so ka. Om ga ga kapi san so ka.